and spirit. Chugging also interferes with digestion when done near meals. Large volumes of water consumed quickly before or after eating can dilute stomach acid, spirit, weakening digestion. That means the food you eat isn't broken down as efficiently, leading to bloating, gas, indigestion, or nutrient malabsorption, spirit. Over the long term, this can subtly affect metabolism and gut health, spirit. Drinking smaller amounts spaced throughout the day avoids this problem and supports digestive processes rather than hindering them, spirit. People who rely on chugging also often turn to caffeinated beverages, believing they count the same as water, spirit. When someone drinks a large coffee and then realizes they're thirsty, they chug water to compensate, and not recognizing that the diuretic effect of caffeine makes rapid hydration even less effective. The body loses water faster and the cycle repeats, spirit. With sugary drinks, the issue compounds as the sugar alters insulin response and increases dehydration risk. In contrast, sipping water gradually supports energy levels, improves focus, and reduces fatigue. Hydration affects blood volume and spirit, which influences how well oxygen travels through the body. When the blood becomes too diluted or too concentrated, the heart must work harder. Spirit. Chugging may momentarily increase volume, but the body rapidly expels the excess, leading to fluctuations rather than stability. Spirit. Sipping helps maintain a steady state, benefiting cardiovascular health. There's also a behavioral benefit. When you sip water consistently, and spirit, you stay more aware of your body's needs. You form a habit that aligns with physiology rather than fighting it. That means fewer headaches and spirit, fewer energy crashes, clearer skin, better digestion, improved mood, and sharper thinking. It's a small change with meaningful effects. And spirit. And the simplicity is what makes it powerful. Ultimately, the biggest hydration mistake isn't lack of awareness, it's misunderstanding. And spirit. People have been told to drink more without being told how to do it. They assume that rapid consumption is effective, spirit. Yet the body doesn't respond well to extremes. What it needs is gentle, consistent support. Hydration is not a competition or a chore, it's an ongoing process. Spirit. When people shift from chugging to sipping, they align with the body's natural design rather than overwhelming it. And spirit. Flooding the body with sudden large quantities of water forces the kidneys into overdrive, dilates essential minerals in the bloodstream. Spirit. And leads to poor cellular absorption. And this happens because the body's hydration systems are built for balance, not for extreme surges. Spirit. When someone drinks a massive amount of water in a short period of time, and spirit, usually because they're trying to compensate for not drinking earlier, or because they believe more water equals more health, and spirit, the kidneys have no choice but to filter and expel the excess quickly. The kidneys are remarkable organs, constantly regulating fluid, electrolytes, and waste, spirit. But they operate best when intake is gradual. When they are confronted with an abrupt flood of fluid, they must prioritize filtering of spirit, which means pushing water out of the body fast, not storing or absorbing it. This rapid elimination triggers frequent urination, spirit, and although it might feel like the body is cleansing itself, spirit, what's actually happening is that minerals like sodium and potassium are being flushed out alongside the water. These minerals are crucial. Spirit. Sodium helps regulate fluid balance and nerve function. Potassium supports muscle function, including the heart. Spirit. Magnesium is essential for enzyme reactions and energy production. When these minerals are diluted and flushed, and spirit, the body struggles to maintain electrolyte balance and spirit. And that balance is necessary for water to be absorbed into cells rather than passing straight through the system. And spirit. Think about the bloodstream as a carefully balanced solution. When water enters the system slowly, the body has time to adjust, draw in electrolytes, and spirit, and transfer water into cells through osmosis. But when too much water enters rapidly, spirit, the concentration of electrolytes changes too fast for the body to adapt. It's similar to adding too much water to soup. It weakens the flavor and consistency. And spirit. In the body, this dilution weakens the chemistry that allows for hydration. Instead of nourishing the cells, spirit, the water simply moves through the kidneys and bladder. This means a person can drink a ton of water, yet still feel thirsty soon after. Spirit. They may wonder why their lips are still dry, why they feel tired, or why headaches persist. The real reason is not that they didn't drink enough, and spirit, but that they didn't drink in a way the body could actually use. When the kidneys are forced to handle large volumes at once, and spirit, there's also long-term strain to consider. While healthy kidneys are resilient, constant overload leads to unnecessary stress. Spirit, it's like forcing an engine to run at high speed repeatedly for short intervals rather than cruising steadily. The filtration units in the kidneys, spirit, called nephrons, must work harder to separate waste from fluid. Over months and years, this repeated strain may contribute to wear and tear. And spirit, especially for individuals who already have risk factors for kidney problems, including high blood pressure, diabetes, or diets high in processed foods. Spirit. Even for healthy individuals, routine flooding rather than steady hydration may weaken kidney efficiency over time. On top of that, spirit, dilution of minerals affects cells throughout the body. Spirit. Cells need the correct balance of sodium and potassium outside and inside their membranes for water to move efficiently. Water doesn't hydrate cells by force, and spirit, it hydrates them through gradients and balance. If the gradient is weakened because the bloodstream becomes too diluted, spirit, the cell membranes can't pull water inward effectively. So instead of being hydrated, the cells remain dehydrated while the kidneys work to remove the water. And spirit, this paradox is why someone can drink a lot and still feel dehydrated. The body isn't being stingy, it's following the laws of chemistry. Spirit. This issue becomes more pronounced during times of heat, exercise, or sweat loss. When sweating, the body loses both water and electrolytes. And spirit. Replacing the water without replacing the minerals makes the imbalance worse. And spirit. Athletes or laborers who chug plain water after heavy sweating may experience muscle cramps, dizziness, and fatigue. In more severe cases, and spirit, this can contribute to hyponatremia, a dangerous condition where sodium levels fall too low. Even mild dilution leads to symptoms like brain fog, weakness, and spirit, irritability and headaches, and yet most people assume these symptoms are due to dehydration rather than electrolyte imbalance. So they drink more water and spirit, diluting the minerals even further. It becomes a cycle: more water, more dilution, more flushing, more thirst. And spirit, it's also important to consider how the body interprets sudden flooding. When water enters the stomach in large amounts, and spirit, the sensory receptors signal the kidneys to ramp up filtration. This response is protective. The body doesn't want too much fluid in the bloodstream at once. Spirit, so rather than absorbing, it eliminates. This can be observed when a person drinks a huge bottle of water and then goes to the bathroom shortly after. And spirit, they imagine the water is hydrating them, but really it's passing through the kidneys with minimal benefit. And spirit, someone sipping water slowly often urinates less frequently because the body absorbs more into tissues before filtering. That spirit, this concept isn't limited to extreme cases. Even in everyday life, flooding the body affects digestion. When someone drinks huge quantities near meals, and spirit, stomach acid becomes diluted. The body compensates by producing more acid, but this takes time and energy. Meanwhile, in spirit, the food being digested is exposed to weaker acid, meaning slower breakdown. Poor breakdown leads to gas, bloating, and reduced nutrient absorption. Over time, spirit, this can affect metabolism and gut health. The solution isn't less hydration, it's smarter hydration. Spirit, drinking between meals rather than with meals supports digestion and hydration simultaneously. People often associate thirst with dryness and spirit, but hydration affects much more. When electrolytes are diluted and kidneys are forced to eliminate rapidly, nerve and muscle function decline subtly. And spirit, someone might feel a little shaky or mentally fatigued or less alert than usual. Hydration influences blood pressure as well. Spirit, if blood volume increases too rapidly, the cardiovascular system must adjust quickly, and then readjust just as quickly once the kidneys eliminate the excess. Spirit. This creates instability rather than balance. The irony is that the intention is good. People drink a lot of water because they want to be healthy. Spirit. They want clear skin, energy, strong kidneys, and detoxification. But hydration requires more than intention, it requires understanding. Water isn't harmful. Spirit, it's essential, but like anything essential, the dose and timing matter. The body evolved with access to water in small, spirit, steady amounts rather than large infrequent gulps. Ancient humans did not carry oversized bottles and chug half a gallon in minutes. And spirit. They drank intermittently from natural sources. The modern approach often clashes with physiology. Instead of viewing hydration as a task to complete quickly, and spirit, it's more productive to see it as a rhythm. Steady intake supports kidneys rather than overwhelming them. And spirit. Balanced intake maintains electrolytes rather than diluting them. Consistent intake encourages cellular absorption rather than wasteful flushing. And spirit. When water is consumed with awareness, it becomes a powerful tool for energy, clarity, digestion, and overall health. Spirit. Whereas flooding turns that tool into a stressor rather than a benefit. Spirit. Hydration is about absorption, not just intake, and that's why sipping water throughout the day is far more effective than gulping it down in big quantities. Spirit, because the body isn't designed to process sudden surges of fluid, but instead thrives on consistent, spirit, steady intake that allows the cells to gradually take in water at a pace they can manage. When someone sips water slowly, spirit, the fluid moves through the digestive system and bloodstream in manageable amounts, allowing the kidneys and cells to regulate the distribution. In spirit, this gentle approach mirrors the body's natural design. Every function in the body maintains balance through gradual processes, breathing rhythms, heartbeats. And spirit, hormone release, digestion. Nothing in the body works well when forced into extremes. So when a huge volume of water enters the stomach at once, and spirit, the body responds defensively, shifting into elimination rather than absorption because rapid intake disrupts the equilibrium of electrolytes and blood volume. Spirit. Sipping avoids this reaction and supports the body's goal to maintain homeostasis rather than being forced to react. To understand this better, and spirit. Imagine your cells as tiny balloons with delicate membranes. These membranes don't absorb water just because it's available in the stomach or bloodstream. Water movement into cells depends on osmotic gradients, spirit, which is just a scientific way of saying the water moves from higher concentration to lower concentration in a slow, controlled manner. And spirit, for the cells to benefit from the water you drink, the blood must carry the right balance of electrolytes. When someone sips water, and spirit, that balance remains intact. The body can draw the water into the cells without overwhelming them. When water is consumed too quickly, spirit, the electrolytes in the blood become diluted, making it harder for the cells to pull in the water. And spirit, the cells can't take advantage of the liquid because the conditions for absorption are disrupted. It's similar to watering a plant. And spirit, if you pour too much water at once, the soil can't absorb it and it spills out. But if you add water gradually, and spirit, the soil retains it and transfers it to the roots. Your cells are like that. They thrive on sustained hydration. Spirit. Another benefit of sipping is that it keeps the mouth, throat, and digestive tract continuously moist. Spirit. These tissues rely on water to maintain their protective linings, enzymes, and mucous membranes. When you sip regularly, saliva production increases, spirit, aiding digestion and oral health. Gulping water might quench thirst temporarily, but it doesn't maintain moisture levels as effectively as smaller, spirit, frequent amounts. Hydration is not only about internal organs, it affects every tissue, including the skin. Spirit. People who sip water slowly often notice that their skin stays more consistently hydrated. When water is taken in gradually, spirit, the body can direct it toward the skin's deeper layers rather than flushing it away. Sipping water also helps regulate appetite and digestion. The stomach and intestines rely on a proper fluid balance to break down food, absorb nutrients, and move waste. Too much water at once, especially during meals, disrupts these processes. It's spirit. But sipping between meals keeps the digestive system functioning smoothly without interfering with digestive enzymes. This also reduces bloating. Spirit. People often think they feel full or heavy because of food, but sometimes the cause is too much liquid consumed too quickly. And spirit. Slow sipping prevents that discomfort, making meals easier to digest and nutrients easier to absorb. The kidneys benefit massively when someone sips water. Spirit. Kidneys are filtration organs. They remove waste and balance electrolytes. When water is consumed in a steady flow, and spirit, the kidneys can filter at an efficient pace. When they're suddenly forced to handle a large amount, they shift to rapid elimination mode. And spirit. This is why people who gulp water tend to urinate more frequently. They're not hydrating, they're flushing. With sipping, urination becomes more regulated. Spirit. The body uses the water instead of discarding it. This is why athletes and people who spend time outdoors in the heat are often taught to sip rather than gulp. And spirit. Even though they lose fluid through sweat, replacing it too fast without minerals makes the imbalance worse. Controlled intake allows proper absorption. And spirit. Especially when electrolytes are lost, mental clarity and energy levels also improve more with sipping than gulping. Spirit. The brain is extremely sensitive to hydration levels. Even slight dehydration affects focus, memory, and mood. When you sip regularly. Spirit. The water supply to the brain remains consistent. When you chug water occasionally, the effect is temporary. The brain gets a quick boost. And spirit. But then hydration levels drop again once the kidneys flush the surplus. This roller coaster effect doesn't support long-lasting mental performance. Spirit. Sipping prevents these highs and lows. It keeps the brain nourished, helping maintain steady attention and cognitive function. Spirit. Another aspect to consider is the body's natural thirst signals. When someone sips frequently, they remain in tune with their thirst cues. And spirit. Their body speaks to them through subtle reminders. When someone ignores thirst all day, then gulps at night, they lose touch with those natural signals. Spirit. Over time, this can dull the body's instinctive request for hydration. Sipping nurtures awareness and teaches the body that its needs will be met consistently. Spirit. This reduces extreme thirst and prevents dehydration from creeping in. There's also a behavioral element. And spirit. People who sip water tend to carry a bottle or glass with them and stay mindful of their intake. And spirit. This habit encourages hydration as part of daily life rather than a chore or a rushed act. It becomes routine like breathing or stretching. And spirit. When hydration becomes habitual rather than reactive, the body benefits more. People who gulp are reacting rather than preventing. Spirit. They wait until they're thirsty, sometimes very thirsty, and then try to quench it all at once. But thirst is a sign that the body is already in a deficit. And spirit. Sipping prevents this deficit from happening in the first place. The idea that sipping is better than gulping isn't about drinking less water. Spirit. It's about drinking the same amount in a way that supports physiology. If someone needs 2 liters a day, and spirit, they'll benefit more by drinking small portions throughout the day rather than half a liter in the morning, half at lunch, and the rest at night. And spirit. The difference lies in how the body handles the intake. The cells absorb more, the kidneys strain less, and the brain stays clearer. And spirit. Even the heart benefits because steady hydration maintains blood volume more consistently. Blood that remains properly hydrated flows more easily. And spirit. Reducing cardiovascular strain. Sipping water aligns with the body's rhythms. The body works best when it's nourished gradually. Whether we talk about food, movement, sleep, or hydration, extremes rarely lead to long-term wellness. Sipping supports absorption, supports electrolyte balance, supports digestion. Spirit. Supports kidney function, supports brain health, supports skin hydration, and supports overall stability. It turns water into a resource the body can use, spirit, not discard. Gulping may seem satisfying in the moment, but it's a short-term fix that doesn't support long-term hydration needs. And spirit. The real goal isn't to drink more water quickly, it's to drink more water efficiently in a way the body can handle and benefit from. Spirit. Drinking large amounts of water immediately before or after meals can weaken digestion by diluting stomach acids and enzymes. And spirit. And this subtle mistake can have a surprisingly large ripple effect on how well the body processes food, absorbs nutrients. And spirit. And maintains digestive comfort because the stomach relies on a precise acidic environment to break down proteins, activate enzymes. Spirit. And signal other organs to contribute their own digestive juices. When a big volume of water is consumed right before eating. Spirit. The stomach's acidity becomes more neutral, and instead of having a strong acidic environment ready to receive food, it's temporarily weakened. And spirit, which forces the stomach to work harder to restore the acid levels it needs. This extra effort may seem trivial once or twice, but over months and years, and spirit, it can lessen digestive efficiency. Food sits longer, digestion slows, and this delay can cause bloating, gas, discomfort, or heaviness after meals. Spirit. The stomach's acid is not just for dissolving food, it also plays a protective role. And spirit. It kills many harmful bacteria and pathogens that enter the body through food. Diluting acid weakens this defense. And spirit, meaning the immune system must work harder to handle microbes that would have otherwise been neutralized in the stomach. Natural enzymes in the stomach, spirit, especially pepsin, need a highly acidic environment to function. These enzymes help break down proteins into usable amino acids. And spirit, when someone floods their stomach with water before or right after eating, these enzymes become less active and less effective. Spirit, which means proteins are not properly broken down. Over time, this can contribute to nutrient deficiencies. And spirit, especially in individuals whose digestive systems are already sensitive or compromised. Eating is a complex, coordinated process involving the stomach, liver, spirit, pancreas, gallbladder, and intestines. When hydration disrupts one part of the process, the effects spread. For instance, spirit, the pancreas releases digestive enzymes in response to stomach acid levels. If stomach acid is diluted, the signal becomes weaker, spirit, and the pancreas may not release the full amount of enzymes needed for carbohydrate and fat digestion. The gallbladder releases bile to help emulsify fats. And spirit, if food reaches the small intestine improperly digested because stomach acid and enzymes were diluted, the bile and pancreatic enzymes have extra work to do. And spirit, this compensation is not ideal. It's like a relay race in which the first runner slows down and the others must sprint harder to catch up. In many people, and spirit, indigestion or acid reflux is aggravated by drinking too much water during meals. Water increases the volume in the stomach. And spirit, putting pressure on the lower esophageal sphincter. If that sphincter is already weak or sensitive, the added pressure can push food or stomach acid upward. And spirit, causing heartburn. People often assume heartburn is caused by too much acid, but in reality, spirit, it can also be related to weak digestion and delayed stomach emptying. When digestion slows because stomach acid is diluted, food stays in the stomach longer, increasing the chance of reflux episodes. And spirit, many individuals struggle with nutrient absorption without realizing that mealtime hydration habits may be part of the issue. And spirit, vitamins like B12 rely on stomach acid for proper absorption. Minerals such as iron and calcium also depend on sufficient acidity. And spirit, if someone habitually drinks large amounts of water with meals, their acid levels may consistently remain too low for optimal nutrient extraction over years. And spirit, even small decreases in absorption can contribute to fatigue, weakened immunity, brittle hair and nails, and other signs of deficiency. And spirit, digestion also depends on mechanical breakdown. Chewing is the first step. When someone drinks too much water during a meal, and spirit, they often chew less thoroughly because the water softens the food artificially. This means larger food particles enter the stomach, which takes more effort to break down. And spirit, the combination of less chewing and diluted stomach acid creates a scenario in which digestion is less efficient from the beginning. And spirit, eating more slowly and allowing saliva to mix with food naturally improves digestion, while water interrupts this rhythm. And spirit, cultural habits sometimes reinforce the idea that drinking with meals is normal or healthy. Many restaurants serve water as soon as people sit. And spirit, families often eat with drinks by their plates. Marketing for beverages encourages pairing them with food. But historically, spirit, humans didn't have drinks automatically available at every meal. They consumed moisture through foods and drank separately. And spirit, our ancestors relied on the body's natural digestive processes, and modern science supports the idea that this approach aligns better with human physiology. And spirit, drinking after meals can also cause issues, especially in large quantities. Once the stomach begins breaking down food, spirit, adding a lot of water dilutes the acid that remains and slows the breakdown process further. And spirit, this can lead to feelings of fullness or distension long after eating. People often think they've overeaten when in reality, and spirit, they've overwhelmed the stomach with liquid. Slow digestion leaves food fermenting longer, which can cause gas and discomfort. And spirit, it's important to clarify that drinking water is not the enemy. Hydration is essential, but timing matters. And spirit, The body functions more efficiently when drinking occurs between meals rather than during them. Sipping small amounts while eating is generally harmless, spirit, especially for people who need moisture to swallow, but large volumes create problems. And spirit, drinking water 30 minutes before meals or about an hour after meals gives the stomach time to maintain the acidic environment it needs for digestion. Spirit. Another benefit of spacing water intake away from meals is better appetite regulation, when someone drinks a lot right before eating. And spirit, they may temporarily suppress hunger signals, which can lead to eating less, but also digesting less efficiently. And spirit, for individuals trying to maintain balanced nutrition, this isn't ideal. On the other hand, drinking a reasonable amount of water before meals, and spirit, but not large quantities, can help prevent overeating without hindering digestion. It's about balance rather than extremes. Spirit, people with digestive issues like giardia or low stomach acid may be more sensitive to these effects. For them, and spirit, avoiding large amounts of water near meals can bring noticeable improvements, feeling lighter after meals, having fewer reflux episodes. And spirit, and experiencing less bloating are common outcomes when people adjust their hydration habits. Spirit. It's also worth noting that many digestive enzymes and hormones operate on feedback loops. And spirit, the stomach releases acid based on the presence of food and the density of the contents. When water dilutes that density, the stomach must readjust. And spirit, this takes time and energy. When this happens at every meal, day after day, the body reallocates resources that could otherwise support metabolism, immunity, spirit, or cellular repair. Efficient digestion saves energy for other functions. Over time, changing water habits can improve gut health and nutritional status, and spirit, leading to better overall wellness. People often notice clearer skin, more energy, and reduced cravings when digestion improves. And spirit. This is because nutrient absorption is more efficient and the body gets more value from the food eaten. And spirit, hydrating strategically rather than reactively supports both gut function and systemic health. And spirit, caffeinated and sugary beverages do not hydrate the body effectively and can actually increase dehydration because their chemical composition interferes with the body's natural fluid balance and creates a misleading sense of hydration that doesn't translate into true cellular absorption. And spirit, when someone drinks a soda, energy drink, sweetened tea or coffee, it often feels refreshing because the cold temperature, sweetness, and spirit, or caffeine delivers an immediate sensory satisfaction, but this momentary relief masks the fact that these drinks trigger diuretic effects, spirit, meaning they encourage the kidneys to excrete more water. Caffeine, for example, and spirit stimulates urine production by acting on the kidneys and increasing the rate at which water and sodium are filtered out. And spirit, this process pulls fluid from the body, which means that for every cup of caffeinated beverage consumed, the body may lose more water than it gains. Spirit, the result is a net loss rather than a gain. Spirit, particularly when the person depends on caffeinated beverages to replace water instead of supplementing hydration with plain water. Spirit, sugary beverages compound the problem by altering insulin response and drawing water into the digestive tract. When someone consumes a drink high in sugar and spirit, the concentration of glucose in the bloodstream increases, and the body must dilute this sugar to maintain balance. This dilution requires water and spirit, and if the water isn't sufficiently available, the body pulls it from cells and tissues, deepening dehydration at the cellular level. And spirit. This is why people often feel thirsty after drinking something sweet. It's the body signaling that despite liquid entering the mouth. And spirit, hydration has not actually occurred. The sweetness tricks the brain into thinking it's receiving something beneficial, but physiologically, and spirit, the system is being put under strain. Many people assume that because caffeinated and sugary beverages contain water, they must contribute to hydration, spirit. But the presence of water doesn't guarantee absorption. Hydration requires electrolytes to move fluid into cells, spirit, and caffeinated and sugary beverages either fail to provide these minerals or actively strip them away. For example, spirit high sugar concentrations can reduce sodium levels. Without sodium, the body cannot retain water properly. So even though someone may drink a large soda and spirit, their body remains thirsty because the cells are still lacking the water and electrolytes needed to function. Spirit. The flavor and stimulation provided by caffeine encourage habitual consumption, which can disguise chronic dehydration. And spirit. Someone who drinks several cups of coffee a day may overlook the fact that they rarely drink water because the caffeine gives them temporary energy and alertness. And spirit, masking early dehydration signs like fatigue, irritability, and brain fog. Over time, the body adapts to working in a semi-dehydrated state. Spirit, but this adaptation comes at a cost. The kidneys must work harder, digestion slows, and the skin loses moisture. Spirit, even mood can suffer because dehydration affects neurotransmitter function and cortisol levels. And spirit, sugary drinks also affect hydration indirectly by influencing thirst mechanisms. When the body detects high sugar intake. And spirit, it triggers thirst to help dilute the sugar and restore balance. This is why someone can drink a bottle of soda and still crave water afterward. And spirit, the soda didn't hydrate, it actually created more demand for water. Furthermore, and spirit, sugary beverages raise the risk of inflammation by contributing to oxidative stress and insulin spikes. And spirit, these physiological responses demand more water to regulate and flush metabolic byproducts. When the needed water isn't supplied, dehydration worsens. And spirit, another overlooked effect is how caffeinated and sugary drinks influence the adrenal glands. Caffeine stimulates the release of adrenaline and cortisol. And spirit, placing the body in a mild stress state. Stress increases fluid demand because the body mobilizes resources to deal with the perceived threat. Muscles tighten, spirit, heart rate rises, and metabolic processes accelerate, all of which require water to operate efficiently. And spirit, when caffeine creates this artificial stress response repeatedly, the body is left in greater need of hydration than before the beverage was consumed. And spirit, for people who use caffeinated drinks as a substitute for water, especially in hot climates or during exercise, the consequences can be more pronounced. And spirit, sweating already leads to loss of water and electrolytes. Replacing that loss with coffee or soda adds diuretic and dehydrating effects. And spirit, this can lead to muscle cramps, headaches, dizziness, and decreased physical performance. In extreme conditions such as intense heat or vigorous exercise, spirit, this practice may elevate the risk of heat exhaustion or electrolyte imbalance. Even mild dehydration triggered by caffeinated or sugary beverages impacts digestion. And spirit, the stomach lining and intestines depend on proper hydration to produce digestive juices, transport nutrients, and move food smoothly through the system. Spirit, when the body lacks water, digestion slows, increasing the likelihood of constipation, acid reflux, and discomfort after meals. Spirit, people sometimes turn to soda to ease digestion, believing the carbonation helps. And spirit, but the sugar and acidity can irritate the stomach lining and worsen the problem. Skin Health provides another example of how these drinks fail to hydrate. Spirit, adequate water intake keeps the skin supple and supports collagen formation, while caffeinated and sugary beverages draw moisture away. Spirit, leaving skin looking dull or dry. Over time, chronic dehydration can contribute to premature aging because the skin remains underhydrated. Reducing elasticity and slowing cell regeneration, mental clarity is also affected. Spirit, the brain is nearly 3/4 water and depends on proper hydration for neurotransmitter function, oxygen transport, and cognitive stability. Spirit, caffeine may imitate clarity in the short term, but when dehydration sets in, concentration declines, headaches become more frequent, and spirit and mood fluctuations become more noticeable. Teens and adults who rely heavily on energy drinks often report poor sleep quality. And spirit, which creates a cycle where caffeine dependence increases and dehydration worsens. Another often ignored issue is that sugary beverages encourage cravings. Spirit, high sugar intake creates blood glucose spikes followed by sharp drops, and when those drops occur, the brain interprets them as hunger or thirst. Spirit, but instead of craving water, the person might reach for another sugary drink. Spirit. This cycle leads to overconsumption without addressing the underlying dehydration. Over time, this pattern can contribute to weight gain, insulin resistance, and spirit, and metabolic stress, all of which put greater strain on the body's hydration systems. Spirit. Caffeinated and sugary beverages also crowd out opportunities to drink water when someone chooses soda or energy drinks throughout the day. And spirit. They're not just consuming dehydrating liquids, they're omitting hydrating ones. This indirect effect compounds the direct dehydrating properties. And spirit. In moderation, caffeinated and sugary drinks aren't inherently harmful for most people, but they cannot replace water. Spirit. Treating them as hydration sources instead of occasional beverages leads to chronic low-level dehydration that affects energy, digestion, mood, and spirit, kidney function, and long-term wellness. True hydration supports the body, while these drinks stimulate and deplete it. And spirit, leaving the cells thirsty even when the taste buds feel satisfied. And spirit. Chronic dehydration is one of those silent saboteurs of health that slips under the radar because it doesn't always announce itself with dramatic symptoms. Period. And many people walk around unaware that the body they rely on every day is functioning below its optimal hydration level. Spirit. It's easy to assume dehydration means extreme thirst, cracked lips, or fainting, but in reality, and spirit. The body sends far more subtle signals long before it reaches that point. Most individuals ignore these signs, chalking them up to stress, poor sleep, aging, spirit, or long work hours, when in truth their cells are quietly struggling without enough water to fuel basic processes. Headaches that come and go, spirit, bouts of fatigue in the afternoon, dry skin that no lotion seems to fix, occasional constipation, spirit, or muscle tightness after doing everyday tasks are all whispers from a body craving consistent hydration. When you consider how many roles water plays, spirit, transporting nutrients, maintaining blood volume, lubricating joints, protecting organs, regulating temperature, period, it becomes clear how deeply dehydration can impact not just comfort but the core functionality of the human system, spirit. And yet the majority of people only think about drinking more water when they feel acute thirst, spirit, which ironically is one of the last warning signs the body delivers rather than the first. The body is an incredibly adaptive machine, spirit, and it prioritizes essential functions when water is scarce, meaning that non-essential areas begin to suffer first, and spirit. So you might not notice dehydration in the form of life-threatening symptoms, but you might experience brain fog during meetings, and spirit, irritability with no clear cause, sugar cravings despite eating well, or difficulty concentrating for long periods of time, and spirit. And these experiences are often blamed on lifestyle or mood rather than hydration. This is why chronic dehydration is so dangerous, spirit. It develops slowly over weeks, months, and even years, becoming the new normal for many people who forget what optimal hydration actually feels like. And spirit, they become accustomed to dragging energy levels, poor sleep, and slow digestion, spirit, unaware that something as simple as mindful hydration could shift their entire quality of life. Think about the immune system, for instance. And spirit, water helps flush toxins, supports lymphatic activity, and keeps mucous membranes moist so they can trap pathogens effectively. And spirit, when dehydration becomes chronic, immunity weakens quietly, leaving a person more vulnerable to infections, allergies, and inflammatory responses. And spirit, and yet few consider hydration a factor in how frequently they get sick. The digestive system is similarly affected. Without enough water, and spirit, the body struggles to produce adequate digestive juices, the intestines can't move food efficiently, and the colon steals moisture from stool to compensate, spirit, resulting in constipation or bloating. These issues build slowly, leading people to believe their digestion is naturally sluggish, and spirit, when in reality their body is battling a lack of hydration needed for smooth operation. Spirit, another understated effect of chronic dehydration is on mental performance. The brain is nearly 3/4 water, and spirit, and even slight dehydration can disrupt neurotransmitter balance, impair cognitive function, slow reaction times, and interfere with memory. And spirit, imagine trying to complete a task, study, or stay alert during a long day while your brain is essentially working in a drought. The frustration, spirit, the mental exhaustion, the difficulty focusing, it's all a reflection of the brain not receiving the hydration it requires. And spirit. Yet because these symptoms are subtle and easily attributed to stress or workload, People rarely think to connect them with something as basic as water intake. Spirit. The skin also reveals dehydration in quiet ways. Fine lines appear more prominent, elasticity decreases, and a dull complexion becomes common. Spirit. Leaving individuals believing they need expensive skincare products when what their cells crave most is hydration from the inside out. And spirit. Topical creams can only do so much if the underlying tissues are parched and struggling. Muscle and joint health don't escape the impact either. And spirit. Water cushions joints, supports muscle contraction, and prevents cramps. Chronic dehydration forces muscles to work harder, leading to soreness, stiffness, and spirit, and increased susceptibility to injury even during normal physical activity. Athletes know the importance of hydration during performance. And spirit, but many everyday adults overlook how dehydration affects something as simple as climbing stairs, carrying groceries, or sitting at a desk for hours. And spirit. Even metabolism slows when the body lacks water because chemical reactions require hydration. Spirit. Meaning chronic dehydration can hinder weight management efforts without people realizing the connection. And spirit. Someone may exercise and diet faithfully but fail to see progress because metabolic efficiency has been compromised. Spirit. Sleep quality is also affected by chronic dehydration. The body uses water to regulate temperature and produce melatonin. And spirit. So dehydration can lead to difficulty falling asleep, restless nights, or waking up feeling unrefreshed. People might turn to caffeine to counteract fatigue. Spirit. But caffeine itself can worsen dehydration, creating a cycle in which poor hydration leads to poor sleep, which leads to more stimulant use. Spirit. Which leads to further dehydration, and the loop continues until fatigue becomes a constant companion. Over time, spirit. Chronic dehydration doesn't just cause discomfort, it contributes to long-term issues like kidney strain, high blood pressure, spirit, and systemic inflammation, because when blood becomes thicker from lack of water, the heart must work harder to circulate it. And spirit, placing unnecessary strain on the cardiovascular system. And spirit, the real challenge with chronic dehydration lies in its invisibility and how normalized it has become. With busy schedules, distractions, and lifestyle habits. And spirit, many people drink water reactively rather than proactively. They wait to feel thirst, and by then their body has already fallen behind. Chronic dehydration becomes a hidden barrier to energy, mental clarity, physical comfort, and overall wellness and spirit. Yet it is one of the easiest factors to correct if people recognize the signs earlier and understand that the absence of severe symptoms does not mean the absence of a problem. And spirit. The human body is resilient, but resilience shouldn't be mistaken for invincibility, because when the body compensates for dehydration for too long, and spirit, small problems gradually stack up until they become noticeable issues, and by this point the dehydration is no longer occasional, it's chronic. Spirit, and reversing it requires more than a quick glass of water or a single day of improved hydration habits. When people think of hydration, spirit, they often picture tall glasses of plain water and the idea that the more they drink, the better hydrated they become, and spirit. But the truth is that hydration is far more nuanced, because the body doesn't just need water, it needs minerals to manage that water properly, and spirit. And when someone drinks excessive amounts of plain water without replenishing electrolytes and spirit, they can actually disrupt the delicate sodium balance in their bloodstream. And spirit, sodium is essential for maintaining proper fluid levels inside and outside of cells, and when water intake increases without a matching intake of electrolytes and spirit, sodium becomes diluted, leading to a condition sometimes referred to as hyponatremia. Spirit, this dilution effect isn't something that happens instantly in most cases. Rather, spirit, it creeps in slowly through habits like constantly sipping plain water in large amounts throughout the day, without consuming foods or minerals that replace what the body loses through sweat and spirit, urination, and everyday metabolic processes. The misconception that more water is always better leads many people to overconsume plain water, spirit, thinking they're supporting their kidneys and flushing toxins, when in reality, overhydration can strain the kidneys, disrupt nerve signaling, and spirit, and interfere with muscle function. The kidneys must maintain a certain balance of water and electrolytes in the blood and spirit. And when someone continuously drinks water Without minerals, the kidneys are forced to excrete more water to prevent the blood from becoming overly diluted. Spirit, which paradoxically can lead to increased urination, feelings of thirst, and even dehydration despite a high intake of water. Electrolytes such as sodium and spirit, potassium, magnesium, and chloride work together to create electrical gradients that allow cells to absorb nutrients, muscles to contract, spirit, and nerves to transmit signals. When these minerals become diluted because of excessive consumption of plain water, the communication between cells weakens, and spirit muscles may begin to cramp, twitch, or fatigue more easily, even in people who are otherwise healthy or physically active. For example, and spirit. Endurance athletes are particularly vulnerable because they sweat heavily during training, losing both water and electrolytes. And spirit. If they replace only the water and not the minerals, they may experience dizziness, nausea, confusion, or weakness, spirit, which are signs that the body's electrolyte balance has been compromised. However, spirit. Everyday individuals who simply drink large quantities of water while working in an office, doing household tasks, spirit, or exercising lightly can experience more subtle symptoms, headaches, lethargy, mental fog, irritability, or bloating, and spirit, without realizing that the issue stems not from dehydration, but from an imbalance caused by overhydrating with plain water, spirit. The growing trend of carrying oversized water bottles and the pressure to drink enormous amounts daily has created a culture where people believe hitting an arbitrary number of liters means success, and spirit. Yet, hydration is not measured solely by volume, it's measured by how well the body can utilize the water it receives. Without electrolytes, spirit, water passes through the body quickly, moving into cells and then flushing out again, providing little benefit in terms of cellular hydration. And spirit. The extracellular and intracellular spaces depend on appropriate sodium and potassium levels to maintain equilibrium. And spirit. So when sodium levels drop too low due to excess water intake, water is drawn into cells, causing them to swell. Spirit. This cellular swelling can be dangerous when it occurs in brain cells because the brain is enclosed by the skull and has limited room for expansion. And spirit. In severe cases, this swelling can lead to neurological symptoms such as confusion, seizures, and impaired coordination. And spirit. Even though these severe outcomes are rare and usually associated with extreme overhydration, the principle remains the same. Spirit. Excess plain water with insufficient electrolytes disrupts the internal balance required for optimal functioning. Spirit. People often overlook the subtle warning signs of electrolyte imbalance because they closely resemble everyday complaints that are easy to dismiss or misattribute. And spirit. Feeling tired in the afternoon might be blamed on poor sleep or stress. A mild headache might be attributed to staring at screens. Spirit. Or difficulty concentrating might be linked to workload. Few people stop to consider whether their consistent intake of water, absent of minerals, spirit, is contributing to these recurring issues of spirit. Those who frequently dilute their electrolytes through excessive water may also experience increased hunger or cravings for salty foods, spirit, which is the body's natural mechanism of trying to restore sodium levels. Instead of responding to these cravings, spirit, many individuals avoid salt due to misunderstandings about sodium and heart health, further exacerbating the imbalance. And spirit. Electrolyte depletion also impacts blood pressure. Sodium helps maintain fluid volume in the blood vessels, so when sodium becomes diluted. And spirit. Blood pressure can drop, leading to dizziness or lightheadedness upon standing. The heart may attempt to compensate for these drops, spirit, resulting in increased heart rate or palpitations. For individuals who already struggle with low blood pressure or autonomic disorders, and spirit, excessive intake of plain water can worsen symptoms, making daily activities more difficult. Meanwhile, and spirit, those with high blood pressure might mistakenly believe that limiting salt and drinking more water will help, and spirit, not realizing that appropriate sodium intake is essential for maintaining stability and that extreme restriction can do more harm than good when paired with high volumes of water. And spirit, in addition to physical effects, electrolyte dilution affects energy metabolism. Cells rely on sodium, potassium pumps to generate energy, spirit, and when these pumps are disrupted due to insufficient electrolytes, the body struggles to convert glucose into usable fuel efficiently. And spirit, This can create a persistent feeling of fatigue and sluggishness, even when someone eats well and exercises regularly. Spirit. People may assume they lack motivation or discipline when the underlying issue is their hydration approach, not their habits or mindset. And spirit. Electrolytes also influence mood and cognitive function. The brain requires precisely ionic balance to facilitate neurotransmitter release. And spirit and dilution can lead to mood swings, anxiety, or irritability. When water intake is high and electrolytes are low, mental clarity diminishes. And spirit. And decision-making becomes more challenging. Another consequence of excessive plain water consumption is frequent urination. And spirit, which not only wastes minerals but also interrupts sleep and daily tasks. And spirit, waking multiple times at night to urinate prevents deep rest and leaves a person feeling groggy in the morning, prompting them to consume caffeine. Spirit, which dehydrates further, creating a vicious cycle. Some individuals misinterpret frequent urination as a sign of good kidney function, and spirit, unaware that it may actually be a sign of electrolyte imbalance and overhydration. Proper hydration hinges on balance. And spirit, water alone cannot do the job without electrolytes, and consuming water mindfully, alongside mineral-rich foods, trace mineral drops. And spirit, or natural sources like coconut water, supports optimal cellular hydration rather than diluting the body's essential salts. Spirit. The key is understanding that the body's hydration system is delicate, and overwhelming it with plain water can undermine health rather than enhance it. Spirit. Especially over extended periods when the imbalance becomes chronic rather than acute. Many people think hydration begins and ends with water intake and spirit, but in reality the body's ability to absorb and retain water depends heavily on minerals, especially electrolytes, and spirit, which act as the gatekeepers that determine how water moves through cells and tissues. Electrolytes such as sodium, potassium, magnesium, and spirit, and calcium carry electrical charges that regulate the balance of fluids inside and outside of cells, and without them, spirit, water cannot effectively enter cells or support metabolic processes. When someone drinks water without sufficient electrolytes present, and spirit, the body may simply flush much of it out through urination rather than using it to hydrate cells. Spirit. Which is why people who chug large amounts of water sometimes feel bloated or find themselves rushing to the bathroom without actually feeling more hydrated. And spirit, the presence of electrolytes helps bind water within the cellular environment, improving retention and allowing the body to use that hydration for digestion. And spirit, circulation, temperature regulation, and joint lubrication. Sodium, for example, plays a key role in maintaining extracellular fluid balance, while potassium supports intracellular hydration. Spirit, and together they create a gradient that ensures water is distributed where it needs to go instead of pooling in unwanted areas or passing straight through. Spirit. This balance is especially important during physical activity or hot weather when the body loses water and electrolytes through sweat. Sweat contains sodium, spirit, potassium, and chloride, and when these minerals are not replaced, simply drinking plain water can further dilute existing electrolyte levels. And spirit. That's why athletes often use electrolyte drinks, coconut water, or mineral-rich foods to support hydration rather than relying solely on water. And spirit. But even those who aren't athletes need electrolytes for everyday hydration because the body constantly loses minerals through basic processes like breathing, spirit, urination, and digestion. When electrolytes are depleted, the body struggles to maintain blood pressure, nerve function, and muscle coordination. Spirit and dehydration can occur even if water intake appears sufficient. Electrolytes help regulate fluid pressure within blood vessels. And spirit. And without balanced minerals, the cardiovascular system must work harder to pump blood, which can lead to fatigue, dizziness, or a sense of weakness. And spirit. Magnesium plays a subtler but equally important role. It assists in maintaining nerve function and muscle relaxation, and when magnesium levels drop too low, and spirit, individuals may experience cramps, twitches, or tension that feels unrelated to hydration. Calcium, often associated with bone health, and spirit, also acts as an electrolyte that helps regulate muscle contractions and nerve impulses, underscoring the interconnectedness of minerals and hydration. And spirit. When these minerals are present in the correct ratios, the body operates more smoothly, cells absorb water efficiently, and tissues remain properly hydrated. Spirit, however, when minerals become imbalanced, whether through excessive sweating, poor diet, illness, or overconsumption of plain water, the hydration process becomes compromised. Spirit. The kidneys play a significant role in regulating electrolytes and water levels. They filter blood. Spirit. Removing waste while retaining or excreting electrolytes to maintain balance. When mineral levels drop, the kidneys struggle to concentrate urine properly, and spirit, often leading to excessive urination and further mineral loss. This is one reason why mineral deficiency can snowball, and spirit, creating a loop where the body loses electrolytes, excretes more water, and becomes increasingly dehydrated even when water consumption rises. And spirit, the body recognizes when minerals are low, and it may trigger thirst as a mechanism to restore balance. But without mineral intake, spirit. Drinking more water offers only temporary relief, while potentially worsening the underlying imbalance. People often misinterpret this cycle, and spirit, believing they must drink more water, not realizing that what they truly need is mineral replenishment to support hydration. Spirit. Another layer of this relationship lies in the digestive system. Electrolytes allow the intestines to absorb water efficiently, and spirit and sodium glucose transport channels in the gut rely on sodium to pull water into the bloodstream. Spirit. This is why oral rehydration solutions used in hospitals and emergency medicine are designed with specific ratios of electrolytes and sugars. Spirit. They leverage the body's natural absorption pathways. Without these minerals, water alone cannot repair dehydration effectively. Then spirit, the same principle applies to cellular hydration. Water needs electrolytes to move across cell membranes through osmosis. Spirit. And without a proper concentration gradient, water cannot be drawn into cells, leaving tissues parched while blood volume increases. Spirit. Creating the appearance of hydration without the functional benefits. Mineral balance also influences how the body manages temperature. And spirit. Sweating is a major cooling mechanism, and electrolytes ensure sweat production is efficient. When electrolyte levels fall, spirit, the body may struggle to produce adequate sweat, impairing temperature regulation and increasing the risk of overheating. Conversely, and spirit, some individuals may sweat excessively when mineral imbalances lead to nervous system dysregulation. Either way, and spirit, water alone cannot fix these issues without restoring the minerals that control sweat production and fluid distribution. And spirit, electrolytes further support brain function. The brain depends on electrical signals to transmit information. And spirit, and electrolytes are the medium through which these signals travel. When mineral levels drop, cognitive function can decline. Spirit, leading to difficulty concentrating, memory lapses, or feelings of mental fog. These symptoms are often blamed on stress, poor sleep, or diet. And spirit, but hydration imbalances are frequently overlooked. Balanced hydration with electrolytes supports neurotransmitter function, improves alertness and spirit, and stabilizes mood, showing that proper water absorption is not just a physical process, but a mental one as well. Spirit diet plays a crucial role in maintaining electrolyte balance. Foods like leafy greens, bananas, avocados, nuts, seeds, citrus fruits, and spirit, and mineral-rich salts provide natural sources of electrolytes. When diets are low in whole foods or high in processed foods, electrolyte intake can decline. Spirit. Processed foods may contain sodium, but often lack potassium and magnesium, creating an imbalance that disrupts cellular hydration. Spirit. Even individuals who avoid salt entirely may unknowingly contribute to electrolyte depletion, believing they are supporting cardiovascular health. And spirit, when in reality moderate mineral-rich salt supports proper hydration and blood pressure regulation. Spirit. Natural salts like Himalayan or sea salt contain trace minerals that support hydration better than heavily refined salts. The gut, muscles, nerves, brain, and spirit, skin, and cardiovascular system all rely on electrolytes to maintain hydration, and when minerals are present in the right amounts, spirit, water becomes a powerful tool for health rather than a fluid that simply passes through the system without nourishing cells. Spirit. True hydration is a partnership between water and minerals, and without electrolytes the body struggles to absorb, retain, and utilize the water it receives. And spirit, creating a hidden barrier to optimal health even in individuals who believe they are drinking enough water, but continue to experience thirst, fatigue, and spirit, or dehydration-related symptoms even when they increase their water intake because the missing element is not more water, but more minerals, and spirit. Consistent hydration throughout the day, rather than trying to catch up at irregular intervals, supports energy, digestion, focus, and spirit, and long-term health because the body is designed to operate on a steady supply of fluids rather than sporadic surges, and spirit. When people go hours without drinking water and then attempt to compensate by consuming large amounts at once, and spirit, the body is unable to absorb and retain it efficiently. The kidneys work overtime to process the sudden volume, and spirit, flushing much of it out instead of distributing it to the cells and tissues that actually need it. Spirit. This leads to a paradox where someone might feel thirstier after drinking a lot at once, mistakenly believing they didn't consume enough, when in reality, spirit, their body simply didn't have the time or balance to absorb the water. The principle of steady hydration is tied to how the body maintains equilibrium and spirit, or homeostasis, in every system. Cells, blood, muscles, and organs rely on a constant presence of water to function optimally. And spirit. Skipping intake for long periods interrupts that rhythm, and when hydration becomes inconsistent, spirit. Even minor daily tasks can feel more draining because the body is forced to adjust repeatedly to extremes of fluid deficit and excess. And spirit. Energy levels are particularly sensitive to hydration patterns. Even mild dehydration can reduce blood volume slightly, spirit, making it harder for the heart to circulate oxygen and nutrients effectively. The brain receives less oxygen and experiences slower neurotransmitter activity, which manifests as fatigue, lack of focus, and mental fog. Many people assume these symptoms are caused by poor sleep, stress, or diet, spirit. But inconsistent hydration plays a major role. By sipping water regularly throughout the day, the blood remains at a stable volume, spirit. Oxygen delivery is more consistent, and the brain can maintain optimal function without the peaks and crashes that occur when hydration is irregular, spirit. Individuals who adopt this pattern often notice a sustained sense of alertness rather than brief bursts of energy followed by crashes, spirit, because their internal fluid balance supports continuous cellular activity. Digestion is another system that benefits immensely from steady hydration, spirit. Water is necessary for the production of digestive juices and the smooth transit of food through the intestines. When hydration is inconsistent, and spirit, the digestive system struggles to maintain the appropriate fluid balance, resulting in slowed digestion, bloating, or constipation, spirit. People often try to fix these issues with sudden large intakes of water, but the digestive system can only process so much at a time, spirit. Drinking steadily allows water to mix gradually with digestive juices, aiding enzyme function and nutrient absorption, and spirit. It also helps maintain the moisture of mucosal linings in the stomach and intestines, and spirit, which protects tissue from irritation and supports a healthy gut microbiome. Over time, spirit, the habit of consistent hydration strengthens digestive efficiency and reduces the chronic discomfort that many people accept as normal. Spirit. Maintaining consistent hydration also plays a critical role in temperature regulation. The body uses water for sweating and evaporative cooling, spirit, and when fluid levels fluctuate, temperature regulation becomes less efficient. In spirit, individuals who skip water for long periods and then drink heavily may feel temporarily refreshed, spirit, but their body has already experienced stress from periods of relative dehydration in hot environments or during physical activity, and spirit. This irregularity increases the risk of heat-related stress or fatigue because the body cannot rely on a stable supply of fluids to manage temperature effectively. Consistent hydration prevents these sudden swings, and spirit, allowing thermoregulation to function smoothly and reducing the strain on the cardiovascular and nervous systems, and spirit. The musculoskeletal system is also influenced by hydration patterns. Muscles and joints rely on water for lubrication, nutrient transport, and spirit and metabolic processes. When water intake is inconsistent, the body prioritizes essential organs over muscles, which can lead to stiffness, cramps, and spirit, or fatigue even during light activity. Over time, this creates a cycle where movement becomes uncomfortable, discouraging physical activity, spirit, which in turn can affect overall health and weight management. By drinking water consistently, muscles receive the hydration they need for optimal contraction, and spirit. recovery and flexibility, and joints remain properly cushioned to prevent discomfort during daily movement. And spirit. Kidney function is directly impacted by steady hydration. The kidneys filter waste and balance electrolytes continuously. Spirit. And irregular water intake forces them to work inefficiently. During periods of dehydration, waste accumulates, spirit, and when water is consumed in large amounts suddenly, the kidneys must rapidly filter the excess, which can strain the organs. And spirit. Steady hydration allows the kidneys to operate at a manageable pace, supporting consistent filtration, stable electrolyte levels, and efficient removal of toxins. And spirit. This reduces long-term stress on the kidneys and helps prevent conditions that can arise from chronic overexertion or repeated strain. Spirit. Mood and emotional well-being are subtly but significantly affected by hydration habits. Even slight dehydration can increase cortisol levels, leading to irritability, anxiety, or difficulty concentrating. And spirit. People who wait until they are thirsty to drink water often experience fluctuations in mood as their body cycles between deficit and rehydration. Spirit. Regularly sipping water keeps cortisol levels more balanced and supports neurotransmitter function, which stabilizes mood, enhances cognitive performance, and spirit, and reduces feelings of fatigue or mental strain. This contributes to a clearer sense of focus and better decision making throughout the day. And spirit. Skin health is another area that benefits from consistent water intake. Dehydration reduces skin elasticity, accelerates the appearance of fine lines, spirit, and can leave the complexion dull when water is consumed irregularly. And spirit. Periods of cellular dehydration leave the skin undernourished and more prone to dryness or irritation. Spirit. Steady hydration supports the cell's ability to retain moisture, improves elasticity, and helps maintain a natural glow. Over time, of spirit, this contributes to healthier looking skin and reduces the need for external moisturizers to compensate for internal deficits. And spirit. Electrolyte balance is closely linked to consistent hydration as well. When water intake fluctuates, electrolytes such as sodium, potassium, spirit, and magnesium can become diluted or unevenly distributed, which impacts cellular hydration, nerve signaling, and muscle function. Regular spirit. Steady water consumption supports the body's ability to maintain the proper ratios of electrolytes, spirit, ensuring that water is absorbed efficiently and used effectively throughout the body. This reduces the risk of cramping, dizziness, spirit, or mental fatigue that often accompanies erratic drinking patterns. A key behavioral benefit of consistent hydration is habit formation. And spirit. When drinking water becomes a regular part of the day through small sips at intervals rather than large amounts consumed sporadically, and spirit, the body learns to expect a steady supply. This develops a natural rhythm of thirst and intake. And spirit, reducing extreme sensations of dryness or sudden cravings for water. By integrating water intake into daily routines, such as before meals, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, and before bedtime, the body maintains optimal hydration levels without requiring conscious effort or reactive compensations. Spirit. Did you know that one everyday habit, something you probably think is totally harmless, is quietly putting stress on your kidneys, draining your energy, spirit, and sabotaging your long-term health? Most people have no idea. And spirit, because it's disguised as being healthy, and you might even be doing it right now without realizing the damage it can cause. Stick with me, spirit, because by the end of this video, and spirit, you'll understand the hydration mistake that's creeping into millions of lives and how to fix it before it leads to bigger problems down the road. And yes, spirit, this topic has gained attention in natural health circles, including names like Barbara O'Neill, spirit. But today we're diving into what science and physiology actually tell us, so you walk away empowered, not scared or confused. Here's the shocker. Spirit, the biggest hydration mistake isn't that people don't drink water. It's that they drink water the wrong way. Most of us chug large amounts at once. And spirit, especially when we realize we haven't had enough all day, or we rely heavily on caffeinated drinks, flavored waters, and spirit, or sugary beverages, thinking they count the same as pure hydration. Your body isn't designed to handle sudden flooding, spirit. And this habit forces your kidneys to work overtime, dilutes essential minerals, and sends your electrolyte balance out of alignment. And spirit, when you gulp instead of sip, you trigger rapid elimination, which means instead of hydrating your cells, spirit, You're flushing out important nutrients and essentially pouring water straight through your system. Spirit. If you've ever wondered why you drink so much but still feel thirsty, or your lips remain dry, or you end up running to the bathroom every 20 minutes, Spirit, this is why. Hydration isn't just about volume, it's about absorption. Think of it like plants. If you dump a bucket of water onto dry soil, and Spirit, most of it runs off. But if you water slowly and consistently, the soil absorbs it deeply and evenly. Your cells operate the same way. And Spirit. Now let's talk about timing, because this is where the slowly killing you part becomes important. Spirit. When you slam a huge bottle of water right before or after meals, you dilute digestive enzymes and stomach acid over time. Spirit. This can interfere with proper digestion, nutrient breakdown, and even lead to bloating or acid reflux. It may feel harmless, but day after day, Spirit, year after year, it places strain on your digestive system. The better approach is spacing your water intake between meals. Spirit. Sipping consistently rather than overwhelming your stomach when it's trying to do complex chemical work. And then there's the hidden hydration thief. And Spirit, caffeine and sugar, coffee, tea, sodas, and energy drinks may feel like they count towards your water intake. And Spirit, but their diuretic and dehydrating effects mean you could actually be losing more fluids than you're gaining. So you get trapped in a cycle, tired, thirsty, Spirit. Pounding caffeine, losing electrolytes, then craving more stimulants. Your body isn't malfunctioning, it's begging for balance. And Spirit. Let's bring this closer to real life. That afternoon slump you blame on lack of sleep. It could be dehydration. The headaches you think are stress. Spirit. Also dehydration. That feeling when your heart races or you're dizzy when you stand up too quickly. Spirit. Your body might be struggling to maintain fluid and electrolyte equilibrium. Even subtle dehydration affects mood, focus, metabolism, and joint function. Spirit. Chronic dehydration doesn't announce itself dramatically. It shows up quietly: low energy, constipation, dry skin, muscle cramps, and poor concentration. And Spirit. And we normalize it until it becomes our everyday baseline. We also need to address a common misconception: more water isn't always better. Spirit. Excessive consumption without electrolytes can lead to hyponatremia, a dangerous imbalance where sodium becomes diluted. And Spirit. While this condition is rare for most people in daily life, athletes, intense gym goers, or those who drink huge volumes quickly can be at risk. Spirit. The solution is simple: not fear but balance. Water alone isn't the full story. Minerals matter. Natural electrolytes from food sources like fruits and Spirit, or a pinch of mineral-rich salt in your water, help your cells absorb and retain hydration rather than flush it out. Spirit. So what should you do instead? Aim for steady hydration throughout the day. Pay attention to your body's thirst cues. Spirit. And choose pure water more often than sugary or caffeinated alternatives. Start your morning with a glass of water before coffee. Spirit. Carry a bottle and sip consistently rather than catching up all at once. And Spirit. Give your digestive system space by drinking more between meals rather than during them. And when you sweat, whether from heat, exercise, or physical labor, Spirit. Support hydration with electrolytes, not just plain water. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Spirit. Hydration is one of the simplest and most powerful health habits, and by understanding how your body actually absorbs and uses water, Spirit, you can dramatically improve your energy, digestion, mental clarity, and long-term wellness. Imagine waking up without that dry mouth or morning headache. And Spirit. Imagine having more energy without relying on caffeine. Imagine fewer cramps, clearer skin, and better focus simply by changing how you hydrate. And Spirit. That's how foundational and transformative this can be. The mistake is common, the fix is simple, and the results are real. And Spirit. So the next time you reach for water, don't chug it mindlessly. Sip with intention. Space your intake. Favor purity over sugar and stimulants. And remember, Spirit, hydration isn't a race, it's a rhythm. If you found this eye-opening and want more content that cuts through myths and confusion to bring you practical, Spirit, science-based wellness insight, make sure to subscribe, and share this with someone you care about. Stay hydrated the right way, take care of yourself, and Spirit. And I'll see you in the next video. The biggest hydration mistake isn't simply that people don't drink enough water, but that they drink it the wrong way. And Spirit. especially by chugging large amounts at once, and this misunderstanding stems from the widespread belief that more equals better. And spirit. When someone realizes they haven't had enough water during the day, the instinct is to grab a bottle and gulp it down quickly. Spirit, believing they're instantly correcting dehydration. It feels logical, even responsible. And spirit. But this habit ignores how the human body actually processes and absorbs fluids. The body is not a bottomless container. It's a system with limits, rhythms, spirit, and mechanisms designed to maintain balance. When someone floods their system with a sudden influx of water, spirit, the kidneys are forced to work harder to filter and manage that excess, instead of helping the body hydrate. And spirit, rapid chugging can push water through the system too quickly, causing more elimination than absorption. And spirit, this means that much of the water consumed ends up in the toilet rather than nourishing cells, tissues and organs. Spirit. Most people don't realize that hydration isn't determined solely by how much water enters the mouth. It's about how much ends up in the cells. Spirit. When water is consumed so inconsistently, the body can regulate absorption, transport it into cells, and maintain electrolyte balance. And spirit. But when someone chugs, the body interprets the sudden volume as something it needs to get rid of fast. The kidneys begin filtering aggressively. And spirit, leading to frequent urination and flushing out minerals like sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Spirit. This can create a cycle where a person feels thirsty again soon after drinking. Ironically, spirit. People often interpret this constant thirst as a sign they need to chug even more water, not realizing they're perpetuating the problem. Imagine a sponge. And spirit. Pour a massive amount of water onto it all at once, and most of it runs off, but slowly drip water onto the sponge, and it gradually absorbs and retains it. And spirit. Human cells behave similarly. They don't instantly absorb a sudden flood of fluid. The body must transport water across cell membranes. Spirit. And that process isn't instantaneous. It requires electrolytes and time. Chugging water can overwhelm this delicate balance. And spirit, whereas sipping allows better control, chugging water also affects the body's chemical equilibrium. When someone drinks too quickly, spirit, they dilute the plasma in their bloodstream and shift electrolyte levels. This sudden change can leave them feeling lightheaded, bloated, or nauseous. And spirit, in extreme cases, especially among athletes or during intense heat, excessive rapid water intake can lead to hyponatremia. Spirit, a condition where sodium levels drop dangerously low. While most people may never face such extreme outcomes, the principle remains the same. And spirit, hydration isn't a speed game. The body thrives on steady intake, not sudden floods, beyond physical strain. And spirit, the habit of chugging reflects a psychological misunderstanding of hydration. Many people treat water as something they can catch up on, and spirit, like sleep or calories, but hydration doesn't work that way. The body prefers a consistent supply, not a single massive deposit. Spirit, chugging water is often triggered by guilt or panic. Someone realizes they've neglected hydration all day and tries to compensate quickly. Unfortunately, spirit. This mindset reinforces behaviors that don't genuinely hydrate. It teaches the brain to wait until thirst is extreme, rather than responding earlier with small and spirit steady intake. Over time, this can dull the body's natural thirst cues, leaving someone less attuned to when they need water. Spirit. The modern lifestyle contributes heavily to this mistake. Busy schedules, long work days, and constant distractions lead people to postpone drinking. And spirit. Many individuals don't carry water with them or simply forget to sip throughout the day. When they finally do drink, it's in large amounts at mealtime. And spirit, during workouts or late at night. This pattern becomes habitual. It's common to see people at the gym taking huge gulps, thinking it's replenishing them. Spirit, not realizing they're overwhelming their system instead of hydrating efficiently. There's also the cultural element. The popularity of enormous water bottles. Spirit, hydration challenges and trendy advice promoting high water intake sometimes encourages quantity over quality. And spirit, people see influencers or health experts carrying massive jugs and assume that finishing one quickly is the goal. And spirit, but the real goal isn't to drink more quickly, it's to drink more effectively. The message gets lost. Spirit, and so people chug without understanding the consequences.